So hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar where we're looking at essential oils and in particular looking at consumer insights and regulatory considerations. I'm also going to be joined here by Frisia Day from Connect for Compliance, who I'll be introducing a bit formally soon. Today's webinar is being recorded, so I'll be sending out the recording shortly after the webinar ends. There's also going to be a chance for a Q&A. Please feel free to use the chat box if you want to kind of talk about anything in particular that comes up and have conversations with each other. Keep it interactive. But yes, we'll also have a chance towards the end of the webinar where we'll review your questions and can give you some specific answers. So just to kind of give you the overview of the agenda today, we'll be looking at the essential oil market. Why is it such an important thing we want to talk about? What kind of market is there out there at the moment? We'll be looking at intended use regulations. As you'll realize, this is very important when we're talking about essential oils. We'll be looking at global advertising claim compliance. So in terms of how we then get those claims evidenced. We'll also be looking at some market research invites to see what consumers think about essential oils and why they're using them. And I'll be sharing a case study as well to put some of this into some context. So firstly, I'd love for Frisia to introduce herself, if you'd like to go ahead.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Karish. And good afternoon to everyone. My name is Frisia Day. I am the founder of Connect for Compliance Limited, a regulatory safety and product development consultancy firm for businesses for a wide range of consumer goods services that we provide, including cosmetic, biocides, medical devices, detergents, and small electrical and battery operated products. Connect for Compliance offer all-in-one regulatory services throughout the product lifecycle. We assist businesses with their post-EU exit strategy and planning, product marking, labeling, formulation, claim substantiations, technical file preparation, and registrations, and any post-product launch inquiries. I work very closely with the UK and EU national and local authorities, trading standards, very strong professional networks, and testing lab for product testing and testing product efficacy. I am delighted to have this opportunity to discuss safety, usage, and regulatory aspect of essential oils. Thank you, Kerry.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And so for those of you who don't know me, I'm the regulatory director at Aiton Global Research. So Frisia is our real overall expert at regulations, but I'm very specifically involved in regulations to do with advertising compliance, general kind of FMCG categories, and all the ways to do with claim compliance in particular. So really making sure that the services that we're delivering and the research we're conducting is going to be globally compliant where you need to sell your products. So yeah, you can always feel free to reach out to me about any kind of study designs and things like that. So Frisia, do you want to kick us off with what essential oils actually are?
Okay, great. Thank you. I mean, it's always good to have a very sound ground, and it's always good to just kind of go through definition of essential oils. So the International Organization for Standard defines an essential oil as a product which is made by a process of distillation, either by water, steam, or by mechanical processing of citrus rinds, or by dry distillation of natural materials. Following the distillation, the essential oil is physically separated from the water phase. Essential oils can be defined as either products or mixture of fragrant substances, or as a mixture of fragrant and odorless substances. These fragrant substances are pure compounds that they are volatile under normal conditions. Once the aromatic chemicals have been extracted, and then they can be combined with carrier oil to create a product that they are ready for use. It is important to note that essential oils obtained through chemical processes are not considered true essential oils.
Great.
Over to you.
Thank you. And so I just want to talk about the market for essential oils. So now we know what they are, where are they used, and how are they used. So it's a really big market, which is always growing. So currently about 17 billion US dollars worldwide, from between 2017 and 2022. It's going to grow, sorry, to 27,000 billion. $27 billion. God, it's too much. I can't even get it out. So it really is, you can see the kind of growth there that's projected is tremendous. So the kind of main markets there are Europe, Asia Pacific, and North America as well. So why do we think this industry is growing? Well, there's kind of a lot of health benefits that are related to essential oils, which we're going to touch on a little bit as well. So there's a real demand for pharmaceutical and medical applications. It's really something we see when people kind of use a natural medicine or home remedies, that kind of thing. It really is kind of driven by essential oils. They're kind of a go-to for people. So it's the kind of that sort of side that makes people really want to drive it. It's really interesting because, as anyone knows that's kind of involved in this kind of industry, when you do have a product like that, there isn't often that much kind of research behind it, and it tends to be a lot of sort of things that get passed down and passed down. So that's obviously a really hot topic for regulation, because we need to make sure that claims are substantiated and that products are being used properly and sold in the right way. So I thought this was a really interesting thing to bring out, in particular, for today's topic when we're looking at the market, and kind of making that a bit of a starting point. I also want to talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the market. So generally, when we're looking at markets in the moment from the last year, I always like to see if there's been any impact currently, because although things seem to be slowly going back to normal, there is going to be this lasting impact from COVID-19. So obviously a lot of the reasons people use essential oils are also down the kind of spa route. So things like aromatherapy. And of course, with spas being locked down and resorts and everything like that, we have seen there be a real kind of lockdown on those industries as well. So it's kind of growing back, but it is at a slower pace than what was projected essentially originally. I also wanted to bring up what was interesting is a lot of people using essential oils at the beginning of the pandemic, to say that they could help actually cure or prevent COVID-19, which of course you can't say when you've got no evidence about it, and it can be quite dangerous as well to people to kind of make these claims that don't have any kind of evidence at all. So it was things like essential oils, but also things like silver and teas, stuff like that. And the FDA really cracked down on it, same as in a lot of countries, basically making sure that they were researching any kind of companies that were using these products and saying they were safe to use in protection. So it's kind of flagging that up as well and saying, don't jump on the bandwagon with this kind of thing if you are selling these kinds of products. Be very, very careful about what you're saying, and always think about the consumer's health first.
Yeah. And as you've just touched on, obviously the practice of aromatherapy, that seems to be the commonly used use of essential oils, but also essential oils can be inhaled, diluted, applied to the skin. They may stimulate sense of a smell, or they may have medicinal effect when it is absorbed. Essential oils are not meant to be ingested, and they are used as natural scent in cosmetic products and quality natural products. They can also be used as scent for homes or added to laundry detergents. Essential oils usage extends to insect repellent, i.e. like mosquito repellent, as a safe and environmental friendly alternative to DEET and IR 3535. Despite their popularity and their association with the different impact on human health, as you've just mentioned, little is known about the ability of essential oils to treat certain health conditions.
Absolutely. I want to go back as well. I forgot to talk about this chart that was
Yeah,
included on this as well. And you brought up about a repellent. I know citronella is quite a big thing for that. And
yeah,
as you can see, that's got quite a large market. So this was from Grandview Research. They kind of had this table that really broke down the most used essential oils there, which is really interesting. And orange is really at the top there as well, which is quite interesting. So I don't really think of it, but there is orange essential oils used in a lot of products. And it's something you don't really necessarily something you'll go to? I don't know. For me, it wasn't when I thought of essential oils.
Yeah, no, it is commonly used, mainly in, I guess, in detergent as well as window cleaner, or because it has really good properties to cut through grimes and fat in high level. Then obviously it can be used, the claim part of that properties can be used on products as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like you said, it's not necessarily something you're thinking of, but lots of manufacturers are obviously using it.
Using it, yeah.
So we kind of broke down this usage even further, and we conducted this market research to look at how consumers are using essential oils and also what their thoughts are on the kind of whole sector as well. So we just conducted it on 217 people in the UK, just kind of give us an overview of quite general recruitment. So we wanted to make sure they used essential oils within cosmetics because that's going to be a highlight for us, and we wanted to make sure they're using them topically as well, so we could get that feedback essentially from the consumers. We did a breakdown of 20% male to 80% female, as this is generally what you're looking at when you're looking at cosmetics in terms of who is using what. So we wanted to have a true demographic there. We also had a breakdown of ages. We had the majority of the consumers between 30 and 39. We also had 20% from 25 to 29 and 30% from 40 to 50. Again, we really wanted to look at the main consumer of essential oils, but also get the general feedback. So kind of give us a good overview there. So what were people saying overall when we asked them what products do they use? So of course, we made sure that they do use cosmetics with it when we recruited them, but mostly that they're using other products as well. So actually, the majority of people, of 82%, using it as a house fragrance and 77% as candles. So as Frida was saying earlier, it can really stimulate the senses. It's something people really like to smell, essentially. And that's really stood out here as well. Obviously, we knew people were going to be using cosmetics, so skincare products in particular was 71%, but also 65% are still using it as massage oils, which I think is quite high in terms of using it in that aromatherapy sense. We also have people using it as things like mood sprays. So you get things like pillow spray for sleep. Perfumes still quite high with 52% and cleaning at 47%. Much lower as food, which is obviously a good thing because, as Frisia said earlier, you're not supposed to ingest it. So that's good. And then we had a few other answers. But as we can see, the general consensus is pretty high from kind of fragrance side. And then also with things like cleaning it towards the bottom. So why do people actually use them was kind of our most important question there next. And obviously I like the fragrance, as we can kind of tell from what people were saying before in their answers, is the top score there. A lot of people using it for aromatherapy. That was kind of already covered with what is very well known, but it's kind of backing that up a bit. People like to use them because they're natural. And again, that backs up when we're talking about using it as an insect repellent. It's a good natural alternative. So there's a lot of people using them because they're a natural alternative to other kinds of products. A huge percent of the 60% were saying that they use it for their emotional well-being. And again, that really does come into aromatherapy. Although I've kind of used it as two different ones, people don't necessarily relate the same if they don't practice aromatherapy. So we kind of wanted to look at it at two different things there. So there is a lot of people using it for those reasons, and mental health reasons I've kept separately, because I think some people see emotional well-being as mental health quite differently, and you can really tell because we did have 60% say emotional well-being and 36% at mental health. There's also 40% for physical health reasons, which we wanted to bring up because, as we've mentioned, people do, there are these kind of medical benefits that are related to them. So it's good to get that feedback there. And again, to treat a specific medical condition, but they're much lower down the list. People really are kind of looking at them because they really like the fragrances as a whole. So we had a few different kind of statements that I put out there, as probably to kind of get the interesting answers we were hoping for as well. So to really find out, do people think they're good for the physical body? A huge percent of people agree. And again, for emotional well-being, 96% of people are agreeing that it does really help with their emotional well-being. So that even if it's a placebo or if it's real, we do know this aromatherapy is working, and it is why people are using it. So when I was kind of trying to trick people, I guess, and see if people thought that it had medical benefits, it was interesting to see that we almost have these kinds of half and half, where we don't have necessarily people disagreeing, but a lot of people were quite neutral, and just over half were agreeing. So we'll kind of break that down as well and find out what they mean when they're saying about medical properties. And I also wanted to check and see if people said it was good for the planet or if it's important they're organic, because it's one of those industries that I think people assume that something, if it's natural, that it's also good for the planet. So I wanted to find out what people were saying. And actually, again, people are really unsure more than anything, but about 50% do think it's good for the planet, which I'm not necessarily saying it always isn't. But as we know, yeah, natural doesn't always mean good. So then I wanted to break down this medical properties one a bit further, because like I said, I kind of wanted to see what people were saying about it, but I didn't want to lead them on this side, and see what their kind of natural comments were. So I've got this kind of word map here, and as well as the overall table, to give you an idea of what was really coming out of people's answers when they kind of had a free text that they were putting in there. So really kind of things about it being calming was the biggest one. I kept that separate to mental health because I thought even if people don't necessarily associate it with overall mental health, everyone was using the word calm. It calms me, I feel calm, everything like that. So that really was at the top of the list. And as you can see, as you kind of go down, it does go to these really specific kind of health problems. So lots of people saying about using it for antibacterial properties. So for certain essential oils there. Congestion relief came up a lot with eucalyptus. Everyone's saying you need to use eucalyptus for congestion relief. I won't deny that. I've used eucalyptus. It does work. So I definitely think that's true. But then also people saying things about being pain relief, which was quite interesting, anti-inflammatory. Headache in particular came up. People saying about using lavender for sleep was quite common. And as I said, a few other ones in there that I've just kind of kept in to give you an idea. But yeah, I think the overwhelming majority was saying it makes them feel calm, and they put that in with their overall mental health as well. So kind of grouping those together. So when we kind of talk about using these kinds of products in claims as well, I also wanted to go through a case study. So we've seen what the consumers think about essential oils. We'll kind of park that, and now we're really thinking about we're using essential oils in product development, but also thinking of the consumer in mind, because we want to get their assessments on these products to see if they think it actually works. So you can use essential oils in cosmetics. Obviously, you can't make any medical claims. So what we have done in this example, I'll go through, but also it does apply to a lot of products like this, is you kind of have aromatherapy as part of your kind of cosmetic claim. So we need to make sure if the product is efficacious, does it work? Is it a moisturizer that works in this case? But we also want to see how people actually feel when they use it. Do they feel any different? Do they see those kind of wellness claims as well? So it's quite an interesting way of approaching the research, and something that can only really be done through the research we do, because it's not really a clinical assessment. It's a very sensorial claim. It's people saying, I feel like this, and I agree with that. So it was an aromatherapy face cream by a very luxurious British brand that we work with. And as I said, they're looking at substantiating their claims and really looking at it being focused around being calming and relaxing, as well as making their skin really nice. So the protocol for this, we conducted it in the UK, as that was the main market. It was a single placement study, which means we're just conducting the one product on its own. We're not putting it with anything else. It was a 4-week study because there's some claims for it that we knew were going to take in terms of the actual skin change that would take a few weeks to have an effect. We went 50% male and 50% female, as that was the demographic for this product, how they were going to market it. They wanted it to be very inclusive, both genders. It's a reasonably inclusive age at 25 to 55 years old. We had an even split of every skin type, so they could use an all skin type claim. And we also needed to make sure they regularly use face creams, as they were going to replace their normal one with this one. So what were the results once we actually sent out the product, had everyone test it and fill in their questions? And this is what our results table looks like when we kind of we have like the whole breakdown of the report, then we have a summary, which looks a bit like this. So you have every statement or claim that's within the questionnaire. I've taken some examples out. We have the number of people that said they were satisfied, neutral, or not satisfied, and then the percentage of people that said they're satisfied, neutral, or not satisfied. So this is what we really want to use for our marketing claims. We look at the percentage of people that said they were satisfied, because then you can see if it's passed as majority, so you can use it, and if it has, you can lift it straight out into your marketing. So for example, we would say that 90% of people agree that the face cream is soothing. But again, like I said, we wanted to make sure we have these kind of aromatherapy claims in there as well. So we had things about the face cream makes me feel relaxed. The aroma of the face cream improves the quality of my sleep. That was very important to state the aroma, because obviously we can't say a face cream makes you go to sleep because then we'd be looking at a medical product. We need to say that about the skin feeling comforted as well, because that was much more to do with how the actual cream works. So as I said, that's just a snippet from the report, but it gives you an idea of how you can use both the efficacy claims for the product, but also look at wellness claims at the same time. And just to touch on the legislation to sort of give you the reason why we conducted this research in the first place, all claims do have to be substantiated. So even if you're using a claim that comes into a more sensorial realm where you're saying, you know, this product makes you feel so relaxed and calm, you do need to have some kind of evidence to support it. So it's really important, not just for those kind of efficacy claims, you need to have the sensorial claims as well. And so the Advertising Standards Alliance in Europe, which is kind of giving us a bit of an overview rather than picking out every country in particular, do say that you need to have evidence to substantiate any direct or implied claims which can be objectively judged by the consumer. And you need to have that evidence without delay as well. So it's just to bring it up and say, always have claims substantiation, even if you might think it's more of a kind of sensorial claim as well.
Thank you. No, it's fascinating. It's I guess we had discussion previously, and from somebody who is involved with the safety and regulatory part of essential oils, and there is a major difference between the regulators and what they implementing and consumer use, and it would be nice to just kind of fill the gap, and ultimately what we are here is to place a very safe product on the market, with the claims, as you said, that needs to be substantiated, which brings me nicely to the safety aspect of essential oils. And as you again mentioned before, natural products can be unsafe or potentially harmful for health, and essential oils are no different. When essential oils are inhaled or combined with base oil carrier for use on skin, or most essential oils are considered safe. There are more research required in this field to consider the impact on the environment and the inhalation and skin contact of aroma by children, pregnant women, and pets. Since there is no single regulatory framework for products used in aromatherapy, they must be classified according to the most appropriate regulatory framework that is currently available. And as we know, this is the responsibility of companies or individuals who place any product on the market to correctly identify the most relevant legislation that is applicable to their product, and to ensure their products are compliant with the relevant regulations appropriately. In the next two slides, I've got a series of examples to kind of emphasize what we've just been discussing for the past nearly half an hour, that the claims are really important, and to some extent, claims and intended use for essential oils will kind of define the applicable regulation for products. So if essential oils as a pure raw material is used in finished product, European Chemical Agency classification for a most commonly used lavender oil, which is Lavandula angustifolia, which is obtained from the flower top by steaming distillation, is what you see on the screen, which is from whoever has got a slight knowledge about classification and labeling and packaging, or even if you don't have much knowledge about chemistry, that exploding chess pictogram, it can be quite actually scary to see on the pack. But as we know, we don't see this type of labeling on products containing lavender oil, because this is purely, we're talking about a pure, high purity lavender oil, which it may be fatal if it's swallowed or enter airways, and it causes serious eye irritation. It's harmful to aquatic life with long-lasting effects, and it may cause allergic skin reaction. And if we move on to the next slides, we are talking about in this part, we are talking about essential oils, which is commonly used in aromatherapy use, and more or less they are in pure form or very high inclusion level essential oils, which has been mixed with the carrier oil. And if you're not making any claims on your product and with the intention of aromatherapy use, then your product must comply to the requirement, or with the requirement of CLP, which is classification, labeling and packaging, and REACH, which is registration, evaluation and authorization of chemicals. These two regulations are mainly European regulations, and since 1st of January, they've been adopted into the UK law. In contrast with what we've just been talking about, the UK Aromatherapy Trade Council website states that there is no single piece of legislation that applies to manufacture and sale of essential oils and any aromatherapy products containing essential oils. And there are several pieces of consumer product legislation that might apply to products, including general product safety and cosmetic products. So basically the message here is really driven by the claims that you are making on the pack, basically. So no claim, you've got CLP and REACH to deal with. And then if we're moving on to the next slide, then I'm going to go through some series of examples where some claims are made on the pack, and based on claims and intended use, there are several pieces of regulations that could be applicable to products. So the cosmetic regulation must be followed if essential oil is marketed as cosmetic products. For example, pure essential oils claiming to be cosmetic products are required to go along with very detailed use instructions on the pack for any further steps for processing, mixing, and dilution, i.e. adding essential oils to bath or massaging cream. And at the same time, essential oils, when they are used in mosquito repellent as the main active, then the requirement of biocidal product regulation will be applicable to that product. And again, using the same oil, citrus oil, if it's used in cleaning products with very specific claim against citrus oil, which is in this case, we are assuming is essential oils, then the requirement of detergent regulation is applicable to products. And in the case of selling pure tea tree oils with antiseptic properties, then we have to consider the requirement of traditional herbal medicine or medicinal regulations. And I'm just going to touch down on something again we touched on a few slides ago, which is the direct claim and also implied claim. So if you are selling pure tea tree oil with claims regarding antiseptic properties of that product, with a very direct claim that this product has antiseptic properties, then you really need to look into medicinal regulations or traditional herbal medicine. At the same time, you can have indirect or implied claims in a way that you've got very small amount of tea tree oil in your product. It could be cream. And you are making references to the traditional and known property of tea tree oils on your pack. So it's implied claim on your product, then you could possibly consider cosmetic regulation. So it's the claims and how the claims are being made on the pack is a major impact on on applicable regulation for products. And although I've mentioned previously essential oils are not meant to be ingested, that comment was obviously purely for pure essential oils. Essential oils can be added as flavoring with very, very small inclusion level to food and aroma. And if that is the case and the claims are made on the pack, then the requirement of the food, aroma, and flavoring regulations will be applicable to products.
Oh,
And
perfect.
yeah.
Perfect. So that brings us really nicely onto our summary. I can see some questions coming in.
Mhm.
So we'll summarize and then we'll definitely get to answering some. So really, when we're looking at consumer insights, I think the main takeaway is that consumers do really think about it as something they relate to their mental health and well-being. So well-being claims will always be probably really well recognized by your consumers when you're looking at essential oils. Aromatherapy claims can also be used in conjunction with efficacy claims when you're looking at products with essential oils in them. You should always know your product category. So as Frieza was saying, it can depend on the product, how your product's kind of presented and your claims. You need to make sure you're sticking within your lanes, essentially. Obviously, it depends on any kind of raw ingredient. It's not just essential oils, but you can't make medical claims about cosmetic products. And you also need to know what category it is, so you know what regulation you're following as well, because there are obviously so many different ways you can use essential oils. We need to think about safety first. So they're really, at no point should you be endangering your consumers. You should always be thinking about using these essential oils in the best way possible. And as we touched on, when they're used undiluted, they can be pretty dangerous. So we need to make sure that we're keeping the consumer safe. And again, that can really may have an effect on the product category as well. So always research the relevant regulations for the product category. And you can, of course, ask Frisia as a regulatory compliance expert, or ask myself as a research expert if you have any questions there. But I think one thing we really touched on when we were discussing everything is that there does need to be this industry change to fill the gap between regulation and consumer. There does seem to be a real difference with how consumers perceive essential oils and how regulations are around essential oils. And it would be great to get some kind of education behind this. So I think we want to make sure that everyone's kind of on the same page there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through some questions. I'm going to start off in the chat box. I'm going to go to the Q&A and see what we've got. So how did we get a scale rating to get these results? So if I just go back and I'll kind of show you the different questions to let you know how they were presented. So these were all a label scale, so they could select an answer essentially, or select multiple answers, multiple answers again here. And this was a scale rating. So this was a scale of 1 to 9, with 1 being strongly disagree to 9 being strongly agree. So I think that's kind of what you're wondering about there. So that's a general scale rating that we use for all of our kind of studies. It helps avoid certain biases. I won't go and bore you too much, but that's generally what we did. And then this one was a free text answer. So they just put in some free text there as well. And then we've got a question for you, Frieza. Can you claim an indirect claim to the pure essential oil based on traditional use? You may have touched on this.
Sorry, what's the question? Will you just
Oh, sorry. I think we kind of touched on this already, but we can confirm the answer. So
okay.
could you claim an indirect claim to the pure essential oil based on traditional use?
Yes and no, and I guess most of the when it comes to essential oils and direct and indirect claims, it really all depends on the product name, presentation of the item, and the packaging, and how you're trying to kind of pass that message on to consumers. So it's not going to be yes or no answer. You have to be, and also depending on the finished product. So if it's cosmetic, more than likely there is some scope to maneuver and make that happen. But if your products are is classed as biocidal product, then there is no way of making indirect or direct claim. Your products will be definitely a biocidal product. So if I know the type of products, and I can be contacted after this as well, I can assist you with that part.
Amazing. And I think this is going to be another question for you as well. So can you claim fragrance free if you're using essential oils to give a product a scent, as the inky wouldn't have a perfume in the inky?
Yeah. Hi, Rihanna. It's nice to see you here. It all depends what is the function for your essential oil in your mixture. If you're adding what you're adding essential oils to your mixture. So if you're adding it with the purpose of perfuming your products, then you kind of you're really using it as a fragrance. So adding claims to say it's fragrance free can be questioned. But if it's got any other functions within your formulation, if essential oil has any other function in your formulation, then more than likely you can mention that it's fragrance free.
Great.
Yeah.
And another question again from Rihanna. So also, if you're using essential oils in a pillow spray, can you claim helps to fall asleep, or deep sleep claims, or are these medicinal claims? So from my side,
Yeah. Yeah.
it does depend on the claim, how you're testing it, and the product for a start. But there have been some companies that have gone to hot water for using these kinds of claims on their product. But it's because the way it was being presented was assuming that people were having sleep problems that they were then using to treat it. So I would say to be very careful when you're looking at sleep claims for essential oils, because there are some that we've used that have been fine, and there are some that obviously, like I said, I've seen the ASA pick up on. But essentially, I think as long as you are assuming that you're kind of naturally having a better sleep, even though you don't have sleep problems, it seems to be okay. You might have a different opinion, Prisha. But
No, no, no. I agree. I agree.
great. Good, just checking. But yeah, and if you're saying that kind of, if you've got problems sleeping, if you've got insomnia or anything like that, we can't be saying any claims, because then it would be a medicinal product, because it's a medicinal sort of reason there.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree with your comment. And again, it comes back to how the product is presented, the packaging, the name, the artwork on the pack, what you're trying to say. So it's not just purely about claims when it comes to essential oils, or with majority, I guess, of the claims as well. So if you're making any direct link to any form of well-known sleep disorder, then you will fall mainly into medicinal product or traditional herbal medicine. But if you are implying that this product contains lavender oil and it could aid with your sleep, giving your packaging and presentation will also follow suit, then you will definitely fall within the requirement of CLP and REACH.
Perfect.
Yeah, in this case, yeah.
So another question from Vanessa. So again, it's probably for you, Frida.
Yeah.
So if selling single oils for use in a diffuser, so diluted with water to produce a mist, is there a way to be able to market it in a way to avoid the need for CLP?
Unfortunately, no. I mean, if it's used in the house, so you buying your essential oils separately, you dilute it, you're adding it to your diffuser, and you spray your house. Obviously, the regulators cannot really imply any regulation in your household. But also, you have to consider the safety of that product as well, even in your household. But if you are selling this item as room spray, then CLP, and I will also say REACH as well, that it needs to be considered as part of the compliance and regulatory of the product development. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So Rihanna, again, is there any restrictions on mixing essential oils in a product to create an oil blend, such as a face oil or a night oil?
No, there is no, I mean, I'm just reading this question really black and white without having any knowledge about what the actual product we're talking about here, or type of essential oils. There are no restrictions. I would say, obviously, you always have to consider skin irritations, which majority of essential oils have that classification. So you may have to play with the inclusion level of essential oils in order to get the finished product, which is going to be applied onto the skin correctly and in the right classification, and without causing any irritation. Yeah.
It's an interesting, wasn't it? Because sometimes I think the lines get blurred between an essential oil and maybe an extract. So obviously an
Yeah.
extract is something we'd see a lot of oils in a cosmetic product maybe, but an essential oil, kind of going back to our definition, it's a really high concentrate, that's probably much more of an irritant. It's probably a better way of saying that, but yeah.
No, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And also you need to also, Rihanna, you need to consider again the function of essential oils that you're adding to your mixture. And again, if you're adding it for any form of fragrance property purposes, in addition to any other thing, you have to consider the allergens as well, and to list the allergens as a leave-on product as well. That needs to be considered.
Great. So another one from Anna. So she says, could you give an example of an essential essential oil obtained by chemical processes? I don't know if this relates to the same question, but I'll say anyway.
Yeah.
Where can we find information on the levels to be used?
You cannot find the information regarding the way that essential oils are being kind of extracted are unfortunately not commonly available to us. So there could be some sort of degree of misleading by marketing or certain companies that they're selling essential oils that have been extracted from by mechanical process and sell it as essential oils. Usually the price point is a good point to check, because essential oils that they are extracted correctly in accordance with the definition that we went through are, because it's such a difficult process and time consuming and complex, they are expensive compared to the mechanical process. As I said, the definition call if the essential oils are extracted from mechanical process, they are not true essential oils. But I won't be surprised that they are commonly available on the market as well.
So is it acceptable to refer to an essential oil on pack and state as known for its soothing benefits? So really looking at the ingredient claim, I guess.
Yeah.
But from my side on that one, again, you always need to have some kind of evidence behind it. So with essential oils, there's a lot of things like literature-based evidence. There's a lot of evidence that's out there anyway. And also, if you're kind of buying an ingredient from a raw material supplier, they tend to have some kind of evidence behind what you're allowed to say anyway. So you can say on a product, so if it's I don't know, something like aloe vera, for example, that's not an essential oil, but I can think of that's soothing.
Yeah.
You can say it's aloe vera, which has soothing benefits, but you wouldn't be able to say the product has the soothing benefits itself. And there are still real restrictions about using those kinds of ingredient claims anyway. So it has to be the same delivery system, everything like that. So you can do it, you can refer to an ingredient as long as there's evidence behind it that it has that effect, you can say it. I would always recommend testing a final product anyway. If you're going to say any claims about it, it really does protect you when you're looking at claim substantiation.
Yeah.
Great.
Mm.
Just another one from Vanessa as well. So how do consumers perceive the allergens, as essential oils are high in allergens? So is this to do with the labeling, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, they are actually very high in allergens, or they've got more or less similar allergens to kind of chemical made compound fragrances. Um, I am very keen on this topic. Personally, I just believe we are overusing fragrances in our day-to-day life, and I think it gets promoted as well. And I don't know actually whether consumers actually can define what is allergens on the packaging. And I'm purely talking about cosmetic here. I mean, for air care also you have to um, follow the requirement of IFRA, which is International Fragrance Association, and you have to name allergens on the pack. But because they just get named by the inky name, I don't know whether consumers will kind of will associate, oh, these are allergens. There won't be a header to say this product contains the following allergens. It just gets added to the the chemical mix or composition. So I honestly think, based on the study that you've done as well, I think probably consumers think essential oils are the safest oils that they can use, and it doesn't contain any allergens. I would be very surprised to hear anything otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's it. And when we were saying about this bridge from regulation to consumer, that's a huge
Yeah.
part of it. It doesn't seem to be overly clear. We're not saying that they're dangerous necessarily, but
No.
there's no kind of information about the danger generally. And like you said, everyone just assumes well, not everyone assumes, but a high majority assume that they aren't dangerous. So it's really important for us to get that out there.
Yeah.
So the next question, I think I might have misled you in my slides, so I'll just let you know. So it says that you said sensorial claims can't be substantiated only with panel results. Does this mean that we have to provide technical data on top of panel results around sensorial claims? I've probably come out and said the wrong thing there, because panel data is the best way to substantiate sensorial claims. So I think that's what I was trying to state, is that what I was trying to say is you can't have no evidence behind it. So if you have a sensorial claim, you can't just kind of say it. You can't assume that because it's not a efficacy claim, you don't have to have evidence behind it. We have to have panel evidence, and it is the best way to substantiate a sensorial claim is by asking consumers. So yeah, consumer research is what we conduct, and it's the go-to really to substantiate that, like you said, panel results. So just to make that really, really clear, because I think it's really important that yeah, we are using that kind of results there. So I'll do a couple more questions, but I'm aware that the time is ticking on. This is great, guys. I'm loving all the questions.
No, it's
Any
really
we
good.
can answer today as well, we can reply on email to you, and we'll be sending out our contact information as well. But we've got 3 more here, so I'll answer these 3 more as well. And we'll try and answer them. So can tea tree be mentioned on pack with a statement known for its antibacterial benefits? I think you touched on this before, Frisia, as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that I have to, a couple of assumptions, and Vanessa, again, we can have further conversation about this after the webinar. I'm assuming you are referring to tea tree oil as essential oil, and I don't know your finished product, so that is really important to be able to see whether we can claim anything. So if I assume, again, you're adding tea tree oil, essential oils to your cosmetic products, again, as Gary said, perhaps you can make reference to the ingredients claim to say that it contains tea tree oil and it is known for, I would say, antiseptic rather than antibacterial properties. But if your product is a biocidal product and you're adding tea tree essential oils as the main active in your wipes that you can apply onto your skin, then your product will be medicinal, and it won't be a claim. It will be part of your product. It will be your product core and function, intended use. So in that case, you have to comply with the medicinal regulations, and you can make a host of claims, but obviously you have to have a very thorough claim substantiation report for that.
I thought it was really interesting though when you said about antibacterial and antiseptic, and I think the two get really crossed over. When we did the consumer study to kind of look at the insights there, lots of people were saying this, yeah, for this set meaning the same thing, antibacterial and antiseptic, but actually they are two different things.
Yeah.
So from Jodie, if you add a number of essential oils into a formula, should you consider IFRA regulations and EU permitted, oh God, I'm going to have to say it.
Lethal usual levels. Again, it depends on your product. So I'm assuming, because you making reference to EFRA regulation, so your finished product is an air freshener or home scent, and for that reason, then obviously in addition to the CLP and REACH, you also have to consider the requirement of EFRA, the maximum level that it can be used, and also the allergens, as you mentioned, that needs to be considered if your finished product is home scent in form of room spray. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'll do one last question from LMA. So if essential oils have only a fragrance purpose, can we put them under fragrance, or do we have to put all of them in the inky explicitly? Can we also pick and choose which essential oils to put under fragrance and which one to put in the inky?
Well, I think if we are in that privilege, or you are in that privileged position that you can actually add essential oils as fragrance, I will claim about it. I will just run the drum rolls and have it as a claim on your pack, because obviously that is added value. And I would say, probably you agree with me, Kerry, that the consumer will see that as added value, that you can add value to your product. If you've got a CAS number and for your essential oils, and you adding that as a fragrance, then you can call it perfume in your inky list. And obviously you also have to, depending whether it's leave on or rinse off, you have to specify the level of allergens on your pack. And whether you can pick and choose to put in the fragrance, it really depends on the core function. So if you're adding essential oils as fragrance, then you have to treat it as perfume and its fragrance. And I guess the option of pick and mix should not be really considered. So it really, you need to think about what is the main intended function of essential oils within your formulations, and based on that, then there are applicable routes that you need to follow in order to make to ensure your product is compliant.
I think again, it's one of those situations where it always will, depend on the product, depend on the ingredients, it depends on the claims. It's always really, really in particular.
Yeah.
I've just got one more question that's coming for Giles I want
Yeah.
to answer before we finish.
Okay.
So again, this is probably more for you again, Arisha. So how do you manage adulterated or so-called commercial oils which are predominant in the market?
No, it is really frustrating when you see them on the market, because they just kind of fall within this void that we've mentioned. And obviously the price point is the main point that you can actually define them. So essential oils 30 ml cannot be purchased for £1 or 1.99. Unfortunately, again, we need help from competent authorities to kind of fill this gap, but it is quite frustrating when they can just sit next to kind of pure essential oil. So at the moment, I guess you can contact probably trading standard. I guess there are probably the competent authorities for this type of products, and other than that, unfortunately, it's just exceptionally difficult subject to tackle.
Yeah, I think as we said that it really is. I don't know how to do it, but I think there needs to be this change, and it's great to see that you're also interested in the industry as well, and interested in this ingredient sort of category, because I think that's what's going to help these kind of conversations, and bringing some attention to it all as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'll leave the questions there, but as I said, I'm going to send out me and Frisia's contact details afterwards. So please do feel free to reach out if you have any other questions that come up. So just to finish off for today, I do have 2 more webinars upcoming that I'd like to invite you all to. So on the 30th of April, which is next week, I've got reformulating cosmetics, particularly looking at sun protection. I'll be joined by Mikon Ribeiro from MW Innovations in Brazil. And then on the 7th of May, we'll be looking at a kind of logistics side of things. So how to make a success of your global market expansion. And I'll be joined by Karam Joani from Cult Beauty for that one as well. So thank you so much for listening. As I said, there's our contact information, but it will be sent over to you. Thank you so much for joining me, Frisia. It's been amazing to have your expertise on this panel.
And it's been very enjoyable actually to just bring everything together, from regulatory safety, your guest today, yourself, and also the result of your consumer safety. It's just been so enjoyable. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much to everyone who's attended as well. And I'll be reaching out to you all shortly. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And thank you so much.
Thank you.